What makes the Jacksonville Jaguars job so attractive? How does it look to other people? And what are their foundational pieces that they have moving forward? We'll talk about that here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. Reminding you also that wherever you get your podcast, make sure you check into that location. Whether you watch them or listen to them, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Locked On Jaguars will be there. Make sure you tap into that location. I'm going to tell you what we're going to get to today, man. How do I look in the third segment? What does that mean? I'm watching The Wire, and right before she passed away, one of my favorite characters on The Wire turned to her compadre and said, "How do I look, man? What does my hair look like?" And that is right before all of this stuff goes down, you're going to actually take real serious inventory of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll tell you exactly what they look like, maybe to a candidate. Secondary parts to work with, those are the people that we'll talk about in segment number 2, and what that is that's all about maybe not the key foundational pieces, which I've listed 6, but they are folks that you can work with. They're going to get a little bit better and that you can feel good about where they are, specifically since some of them are under contract, right? You gotta like them whether you like them or not. Now, at the very top, we're going to talk about foundational pieces for 2025. And what that means are the pieces that are a little bit better than those guys that I'm going to talk about in segment 2, guys that I really think people will look at this job and say, okay, those are my pieces and my parts. So that's where I want to start. I want to start there. If you're Ben Johnson or Pete Carroll or whoever, there are a lot of things that you'll look at before you even look at a roster. Maybe one of the things I'm guessing, and I'm only guessing, and obviously I ain't never been no coach that got hired for the NFL team, but I'm guessing that the first thing they're going to go, what we got at quarterback, and either what do we have, or can I get one, right? All right, so you can do that really, really fast if you're the Jaguars, or if you're a prospective head coach for the Jaguars. You can do that really, really quick and make that assessment. Like, for instance, let's just say, just pick a job. The Giants or the Raiders job comes up, and you go like, okay, what do they got? They ain't got no quarterback, and where are they drafting? Or what's their salary cap situation? And who might be available if they do allow me to go out in free agency and get a quarterback? So that's going to be number 1, all right? But the main part of that number 1 will also be an organizational decision. Okay, who runs them? How are they run? What are they known for? How do people feel about them around the league? Are they difficult to work with? Are they understandable? That's why I've always said that Shad Khan is a coach's dream. Now, there's some people, though, that don't necessarily probably subscribe to the way Shad is. Some people want to be told what to do. Some people, hey, man, no, this is what we expect. Blank, 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 blank. Not you got carte blanche. You got a blank canvas to do whatever you want to do. Some folks want to go into a situation where structurally everyone knows what everyone's expectation is. In Jacksonville, it's about hope. I don't know how you can have an expectation when you've never done anything. And so now it's hope that you can establish that expectation. And some people don't want that responsibility. Some people just want coach ball. And there's a lot that goes into that. So I do understand that the first thing that people will look at and talk about with Jacksonville are things that most of us aren't privy to, right? From the outside looking in, Shad looks like a very good owner to work for because he's patient. The fact that we don't even know if he's going to fire anybody at the time that I recorded this tells you that he's super patient, because we all would have probably fired everybody months ago. Okay. The fact that he's willing to spend, which he's done in free agency, is also another thing that bodes well for him. And that he's not meddlesome. And a lot of people would like for him, or maybe he restructured the organization to have someone here. And I say meddlesome, and I say it has a negative connotation on it. What if there was another level of accountability from the football side? Just someone else, checks and balances, here every day, eyes on the big picture, a guy that's not the GM, that's actually in the GM's face every day, kind of holding him accountable without it being invasive, right? All of these things are going to matter moving forward with this organization. Those things will matter, the direction of the organization and all of that. Coaches seriously believe that they can change players, or they can, in fact, influence players. They can get the best out of them. That's why these guys are in the NFL getting job opportunities, because they've succeeded their whole life at extracting things from people. So, for this, I have this exercise. I've just listed 6 people. And the reason why I haven't told y'all, I'm going to tell y'all before the first segment in, but I haven't told y'all because I think these are the no-brainer guys. And I'm going to leave so much room in segment 2 I'm only going to name 4 other guys. So that's where we're going to have this huge, huge conversation. But right at the very beginning, I check mark the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. If I'm whoever, there's certain times you can look at it and say, okay, what do we have here? And you can say, okay, yeah, that's good enough. Not in this case. Brian Thomas Jr., he ain't no, well, what do we have here? He's the reason why you go, they got BTJ. I don't care. That they got him. So check mark, Brian Thomas Jr. Some people are so good is that they just draw you in. You ain't got to draw a whole bunch of crazy conclusions and put yourself through all of that stuff. You just know he is a plus, right? So Brian Thomas Jr., and he would have been the first one, by the way, but Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback, and that falls into that whole, you got to have a quarterback situation. And no matter who you are, you take a look at how fast you can get a quarterback, because you need a quarterback. Number 3 for me, I'm going to stick on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm going to say Anton Harrison. He probably didn't make the jump that we all thought he was going to make after year 1. But down the stretch, I watched him. He's getting more physical. He is. I always wanted them to give him a shot at left tackle, but, it is what it is now. And I like him. I like him a lot. I like his approach. I like the way that he talks about the game. And then I like the way he competes. So I'm going to go with Anton Harrison. Number 4, he almost wasn't on his list because of the position, but Foye Oluokun, I think you need a quarterback on that side of the ball too, and I think he is outstanding, one of the most underrated players in the National Football League. So I think Foye has that kind of suddenness to him that if you're taking over a team, you can just automatically identify him and say, there's your captain right there. The last 2 are the pass rushers, Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. We could talk all day till we're blue in the face about, well, it's not consistent. The pass rush isn't consistent. I think their effort and their play is super, super consistent. I think with their ability in the run game, their ability to affect the quarterback when you need to affect the quarterback, even with his, Josh with his pressure, Trayvon with the fact that he never ever quits and he always finds his way around the football. I think they'll be fine. I think they need some help inside, and I know they paid a lot of money for a dude that they played mostly outside last year, DeVorest Buckner, or this season, current season, that's not over yet. And they gave an extension to Devon Hamilton, who as of late has played better. I think they need to infuse some more young talent in there. And, you can say they tried to do it with Mason Smith. He's a player that is not going to be listed as those secondary guys, but certainly he's another player that you can look to get a lot out of. You can't have too many defensive linemen. So those are the Super 6. Those are the guys that if I'm a prospective coach and I take this real quick view, just a really quick glimpse at what I have, those are the 6 guys I believe that I could say, okay, I can win with that. I can build something around 2 pass rushers, a quarterback, Mike linebacker type, a quarterback on offense, one of his protectors, and of course the guy he has to throw the ball to. Those are the dudes that I think that when you look at the Jaguars, if you're trying to see whether or not they have some things that you can work with, that's where you start. We'll talk about a few of the names that I put on the list for guys who can be those secondary guys, not considered the best players on the team, but dudes that can give you a little bit and give you some hope that you don't have to go out and replace them. And maybe talk about a few guys that did make the list. We'll talk about that and discuss it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Rocket Money. That's right. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you were paying for twice in the past, if you've ever used them? Because I know you've used them by now. You heard me talk about them. Well, it happened to me. I had a few subscriptions. I was actually paying for it twice. And then it was stuff that I no longer use. Rocket Money found that for me and made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant in your finances, man. And you can who doesn't need a personal assistant sometimes? Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. For me, it was one of the best features ever. My wife was really, really happy that I was able to save money because we found all of these apps and all of these subscriptions that I was no longer using, and we got rid of them. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen here. Talking about foundational pieces for 2025 and beyond. We're going to look at some secondary parts to work with. We named 6 guys: BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., Trevor Lawrence, Anton Harrison, Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and Foye Oluokun. I think all of those guys are dudes that in their careers are good enough to be the leaders of a team that can win a championship. Of course, they have to be partnered with other people. But when you look at 6 dudes, I think the Jaguars have that. They have guys that have that it factor. Now, of all of those dudes, I really like Trayvon a lot. Y'all know that. And I'm never giving up on Trevor because I think he has to be surrounded with a lot of stuff. Anton is more based on potential and attitude and his approach, and the fact that we saw him play well early when he got into the league. But of all of these dudes, there's one dude that if I had to put everything on the line that I have in the bank, in savings, in crypto, whatever, say you got one shot of all of those guys, name the dude that's a superstar. Name the guy out of that bunch that is the one dude, if you had to bet, if anybody was going to become the best in the league at his position, who would it be? I say it was Brian Thomas Jr., and I wouldn't even hesitate. No hesitation whatsoever. Of the best players on the Jaguars team, the one guy I believe, and I'm not saying he's the only one, but if you told me there was one guy that is going to be the best in the league at his respective position, I'd say it's Brian Thomas Jr., and I feel very confident about that. And that's how much I've always liked him. Everybody knows that, but going back to the draft, I couldn't believe that people who saw him didn't like him. And I was just asking people, friends of mine on here, man, what's wrong? You sure? And there were people that said, you take Brian Thomas Jr. over this guy and that guy. And I said, yes, I absolutely would. And now it's come into fruition, and now folks see it, and I'm wondering why everybody didn't see it. So that's just the way that goes. But those are the dudes that I think make this thing attractive. Brian Thomas Jr. sitting right at the top of that list. Now let's get into the other part of it. There's some young players, Jarian Jones, who I believe, has 10, 12-year career written all over. It reminds me of Steve Nelson a little bit. There's Jarian Jones, guys like Ventrell Miller. We mentioned Mason Smith that I really like. Brenton Strange is certainly another one. Tank Bigsby, Parker Washington. There are a lot of guys, and I was like, okay, I can see it. I feel it. But those are not, I believe, your top 10 players. Those are guys that are on your team that everybody knows them. They make contributions. They're really, really good. But on a team that's going to ever win championships, those ain't your front line guys. Those might be your second and third tier players. I'm going to name you the 4 guys that I think have considered secondary parts to work with, where someone could legitimately say, I could see where they could have a huge impact on us being really, really good. Tyson Campbell is one. And I know is one friend of mine. I know he's going to be like, man, you still on that? Yeah, I am still on that, because I don't believe that kid is not very, very, very good. I just think he's the type of player that if the team is bad, he doesn't look like he's as good as some of us thinks he is. But if the team is good, I believe you'll then see it's like putting AJ Bouye on a bad team. AJ Bouye on a good team, you saw how good he was, right? So I think Tyson Campbell has all of the things that you want. You want to see him stay a little bit more healthy. But I do believe that if things around him get better, when things around him get better, you'll see him for who he is. By the way, if the Jaguars didn't re-sign him, he was going to get re-signed like a bullet in free agency. So his value has been determined probably by more people than just the folks in that building. Walker Little, I've been real critical of Walker Little, but I'm going to explain that to you. Some of it was his play and like the lack of strength that it appeared. But a lot of it was with the way football coaches think for the most part. They don't keep drafting over you if they believe in you. They don't keep signing people over you if they believe in you, right? It's like they had Walker Little and they had Cam Robinson. They drafted Anton Harrison and then they extended Cam Robinson. So it's like, did they know that Cam was never going to really complete that last year of that deal? No, they didn't know that. What they did it for was they didn't know that Walker Little was actually. So when they kept doing that, I said, man, it's got to be something. You just don't keep paying other people and drafting other people if you believe in this dude like that. And they ran it all the way up until the last 2 months of this dude's contract, and then did something that they never do, which is re-sign someone in mid-season. They extended it. I thought if anything, they go into free agency, and then I say, well, how can you tag a guy you didn't even play? And it just didn't add up for me. So I will tell you, he got better. He got a lot better. He was playing pretty good right before. There's an occasional blow by, and there's an occasional where he gets pushed off balance a little bit too much for me. But Tyson Campbell's all right, man. I mean, Walker Little, he's all right. And my feelings for him was because they just kept paying other people and drafting other people to replace him, and they never put him in the game. And they said that he was good at guard or tackle, and then they go get Ezra Cleveland, and then they re-sign Brandon Sheriff, and I'm like, well, maybe he ain't that good. They won't do anything. So it turns out that either he has the best timing on earth where he finally got it, and they went ahead and paid him, or they were making a mistake the whole time. But I don't know. Devin Lloyd is another one. I just marvel at his athleticism. He made a play just yesterday against the Titans, and I'm thinking like, damn, that's what they've been looking forward to. It was a tip ball, but he was around the ball, and he was also very, very active, and he got into the backfield. And you always wonder with Devin Lloyd, do they know how to use him? Because I just didn't want to fall into the same frame of mind as I did with Miles Jack, where we were blaming everything else but Miles Jack on why Miles Jack wasn't productive. And this seemed like a similar situation where they just don't know how to use him, or maybe he's just not good at one thing. There's a lot of people like that. That Simmons kid that they took out of Clemson a couple of years ago just can't find his way, but he's a great athlete. The last one is Travis Etienne. I haven't given up on him. And I know this could be Travis Etienne / Tank Bigsby, which means it would be suggesting that they have two guys like the two guys in Detroit, and they don't. They have two guys that when you put them maybe with the third guy, they could equal what those dudes are in Detroit. But they don't have – I don't think either one of these backs are as good as either one of those guys in Detroit. So that's where I will say, though, that you're not destitute there. And if you have things around them better, those guys will be very, very good, although I want Tank to start holding on to the ball a little bit more. All right, so overall, how do I look if I'm someone who wants a coach to come here? I'll tell you that, and a lot of that depends on who the coach is. We'll talk about it here in a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, segment 3 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. Man, we've been discussing the core players that could make up the foundational players, and then named actually a few complementary players, and then talked about some other players, 5 or 6 other guys that we believe are also super attractive for a prospective coach. Let's talk about that. How do I look? It depends who's looking. If you're Pete Carroll, and your age may make some situations not doable because whoever or whatever the franchise they have. Look, Bill Belichick couldn't get a job, and Pete Carroll is almost his same age, right? And he couldn't get a job, and he had won 6 Super Bowls. He couldn't get a look in the NFL. So let's not act like, and I wouldn't necessarily call it age discrimination. I just think people don't want to keep doing this process over and over again. They're trying to find a dude they can keep for 10, 15 years. So the likelihood of an older guy being able to coach until he's 85 is not ideal, right? So that's what this is all about. For me, he would look at it as a lot different. Pete would say, yeah, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Now, to a young whippersnapper of a coach, if some organization is looking for the next John Harbaugh, the next Mike Tomlin, or the next Andy Reid, somebody who'll be there, like I say, for a decade and a half, I don't know if they'll look at this situation as being better than all the other ones that might be out there. The only thing that I would say about Jacksonville is whoever comes in here is going to be basically charged with doing something and creating something that was almost complete before, but it didn't happen. And that's in the Tom Coughlin era. That was as close as we can go and say they had it. They had that beginning, that foundation. And the sad part about it is the reason why I say it doesn't exist is because anytime we talk about the glory days of Jacksonville with the exception of 2017, we always go all the way back 25 years. You shouldn't have to do that if that beginning that you're going back to is still relevant. I was talking about the Washington franchise early on the national show, and I said, it's sad that those people have to attach, this to the Joe Gibbs era. You're skipping 20 some odd years. And that's what the Jaguar fan base has to do outside of 2017. They literally have to go all the way back to Tom Coughlin. So that means that foundation didn't result in a championship. So it doesn't really connect to right now. Whoever gets this job has to be the creator of that. And if they're willing to just focus on football, that's why I want to restructure the front office, because if they really just focus on football, that's fine. But if you have some football coaches to do all of this other stuff, it's just a bit much, right? Like Urban was doing a lot of that other stuff, but he just wasn't doing the football part of it. Urban was going out in the community and talking about Jacksonville being bigger and better. All of that's fine. But don't y'all want a coach who can just coach ball? Not just call plays. I'm talking about who eat, sleep, and drink football, preparation, the process. And you go in and you get that done and you get that going, and then allow other people to do all of the other stuff where they're talking about what it means and in the community and the fan base. And Dan Campbell, perfect example. That's what he's a ball coach. If you fix it, the community will come. If you fix it, the culture will come. If you fix it and get it right, all of those things, all of those other things that we always try to ask people to be and do and to connect with, all of those things connect when you do your job and you win. Look at Detroit now. Detroit, the Lions got fans that ain't probably never breathed. They couldn't name 10 Detroit Lions from their past, but yet still people around here loving Detroit because it resonates with them how Detroit plays. So it depends who the coach is, how many opportunities that coach has. And I don't want some coach to come in here and think, okay, they don't have no culture. I got to come in here and browbeat everything. I got to get these losers together. I got to shake this thing up. No, that would be a mistake, because there are a lot of people. There's a lot of fans around here that have a winning mentality, even though this team hasn't won. There are a lot of people in that building, a lot of players on this team that are doing everything that is required for them to be a part of a winner, but it just doesn't blend. And there's a lot of things that aren't good enough. And there's a lot of people that aren't good enough. I want you to think about it like this. When Urban got fired, so did a young defensive coach on his staff. You know who that young coach is defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, young Mr. Orr. He was fired when he was run out of here. You know who else was let go? Tosh Lupoy, the defensive line coach, defensive coordinator for Oregon, who might win the whole thing in college football. it's not always about this organization not having the right people. It's about them not having the correct leadership and about things not blending in well together, which is why I say it ain't a cherry picking issue. It's a team building, organizational building issue. I don't think the person that comes in here has to grab everybody by the neck and shake all the stink off of them. I just think they just got to come in here and do their job, and those people will be attracted to them. So, yeah, Sean has to get the right person. Some people think it might be Mike Vrabel. Maybe. Could be. But you better bring an offensive coordinator that can help. I guess folks believe if it's a combination of somebody like Mike Vrabel and Clint Kubiak, you'd be good to go with that. And then they go out and get a defense, or Aaron Glenn and Clint Kubiak. How about Aaron Glenn and Mark Brunell? You know? You never know how they're going to go and how these people see the job. But I do believe that there's enough here where this job isn't unattractive compared to any other job that is attractive. I think the owner, I do think the fact that there's a new stadium, the enthusiasm behind all of that, the logistics of having to move around, how you'll have to move around in the next couple of years while that stadium is being constructed, that may have a lot to do with it. But at the end of the day, those things could actually help you also, because it could help everybody. I remember I was in Grand Forks, North Dakota. I'll never forget. I tell people this all the time. On paper, the worst duty station I ever had. Off paper, the best duty station I ever had, because it was cold. It was in the middle of nowhere. You had all of these edicts and disaster preparedness things you needed for when you drove your car in the snow, and it'd be so cold, man. If you get stranded for 30 minutes, you could literally get frostbite. So what happened was, in that rough terrain, everybody kind of stuck together. Everybody had so much morale because we all needed each other. We didn't argue about anything because look out the window, it's enough to be mad about already. So sometimes those extra things can help a team just kind of galvanize itself and be good. There's a lot about Jacksonville that's good, man. And I think it's a very, very attractive job to the right coach, not to every coach, to the right coach. Because a bad coach and a bad GM will screw up a bowl of ice cream with some hot apple pie. They'll screw that up. A bad coach and a bad GM will make something that's supposed to be good. They'll make collard greens, fried chicken, and macaroni and cheese not seem like the big three, but they are, and you know it. So you have to get the right coach. You have to get the right leadership. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see what the Jaguars do, to see if this is even relevant. But it's still going to be relevant if they keep the same people. Even if they keep the same people, these names don't change. The names on this list, in my opinion, do not change. I'm sure if they keep Trent, you'll probably have to add 6 guys that he picked because, that's the way Trent thinks. His guys can play. But we'll just see. We'll have to wait and see. I want to do something tomorrow. I want to talk about Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor is now a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He made the top 15. I ain't got to sell it. I'm going to just tell you why I think he should be in. And I think this year looks pretty good for him, but we'll see. We'll talk about Fred T tomorrow and any other news that comes from the press conference that will be about an hour after I make this recording. I'll have those things for you too. So make sure you keep tapped in on Locked On Jaguars. It's your team every day. Check me out over in the barbershop too on Locked On NFL each and every day. The PM show, the AM show comes on with Tyler Rowland, the madman, giving it to you like you can't get nowhere anywhere else. And then I'll swoop in the barbershop in the afternoon and do the same thing. So make sure you tap into Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast. Till next time, you guys take care. We'll see you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars.